this is not the time to grow. Stay put where you are. We have the method to annihilate you if you try. And those colonies listen. They only grow when the opportunity strikes. And they retreat when the enemy, our own immune system, and our blood ammunition appears too strong. Then they go into retreat and they stay small forever. And these kind of messages come from the plant world, where the plants protect themselves with exactly the same compounds, which have scientific names, which have been isolated and studied and published in hundreds of scientific articles. So this is what I use. It's also what saved me from getting sick so many times. When I climbed the Kilimanjaro in record time of 41 hours, this is what saved me from severe cold. When I took a group to Nepal, normally people get sick in my groups after 4 or 5 days of the stress of flying and hiking and trekking in the mountains. They start getting the sniffles, and they fight the sniffles for 2 or 3 days, getting tired and enjoying the trip a little less than they would have. This time, people used this and nobody got the sniffles the entire trek. That's substantial, and it's significant because it's never happened before. And I've taken groups to Nepal 20 times already. So these are always in my pocket. They have 3 different types. I don't want to get into that right now. But they do send the message that it is time for your colonies, to your microbes, to coexist peacefully with your body. You're not waging a war. A war is never good. A war is the antibiotics. You always end up causing damage in the long run. But instead, send them a peaceful message. I'm strong. Stay put. Don't grow. And that's what they do. It's been proven scientifically, whether they are viruses or bacteria. That is how you reduce the level of acidity in your tissues by at least reducing some of the infectious opportunists that are living within you. Of course, there are other things we need to do. We need to pay attention to our gut health, because many toxins that add to our acidity come from microbes living in our gut, and we need to make sure we have good probiotic balance. And even more important, we need to avoid the toxin that come from fungus, yeast in our system, which forces us into hypoglycemia. Many people who have yeast infestation have certain toxins entering our brain which destroy our ability to make glucose in a process called gluconeogenesis, which is necessary to keep our blood sugar level. Our glucose should always be level so that we can make energy more efficiently and have carbonic acid and not the other horrible acid instead. Once we are exposed to those toxins, our brain will not manufacture enough glucose. Our body will not manufacture enough glucose. And then we go into a yo-yo, and we eat more junk food, mostly refined flours, refined sugars, which are even richer in macronutrients but have 0 minerals and 0 antioxidants, which are necessary to reduce our free radical damage occurring as a result of the tissue destruction. So we only make things worse when we cannot manufacture glucose ourselves as a result of those toxins. Some of those toxins also make us lose our ability to utilize our own nutrients, like biotin, B6, lipoic acids, are being eliminated from the tissues or pretend like they're eliminated simply because of the poisons from yeast. And then again, we become more acidic. But obviously, the number one thing that is going to affect our acid and alkalinity is the food we choose every day. Is it going to have too many macronutrients or is it going to have enough micronutrients and trace minerals? That is the most important formula, because molecule per molecule, the greatest number of acid residues will always be manufactured when we get food in our system, by far more than any other toxic compound or pollutant. Don't get me wrong. Air pollution does affect us and make us acidic. Heavy metals definitely make us acidic. In fact, whenever you get toxic with heavy metals and some other toxins, your body goes into an acid mode to protect our cells from the heavy metals and those other toxins. Whenever we have more protons in the tissue, meaning more acidic environment, the protons will continuously bathe our own active receptor sites, our active sites on our enzymes and on our cell membranes. Those active areas are crucial for our survival. They have to be bound by protons in order to not become bound by heavy metals. So our body goes into an acid mode for protection. If you have more protons, the chances that our active sites will become irreversibly and permanently occupied by heavy metals becomes much lower. And if you try to alkalize too fast, instead of address the cause for the problem, too fast of an alkalization process would lead to the heavy metals binding your tissues ever so much deeply. And you cannot then get rid of them. So people tell you, alkalize or die, sometimes are ignoring the cause for the pH change. And if you alkalize, you will die. In that situation where you allowed your own heavy metals to cause much greater damage and delving deeper into your tissue. You see, it's not so simple anymore. You cannot just alkalize or die. You have to know what's causing your tissues to become more acidic in the first place and address the cause. You're all sentient adults. You can think for yourself. Do you believe in the simple solutions, or do you believe that life is complex? Do you know that complexity means we should not second guess nature? We should not even second guess our body. The more you know, the more little you find out you really know. And therefore, the best solution is to go back a step, or 2 steps, or 3 steps, and figure out what nature wants. Does nature want us to have heavy metals in our environment? No, it doesn't. They only came into our atmosphere because of deep mining and production and manufacturing of goods that come from the crust of the earth, where heavy metals can be formed as a result of nuclear fission and great pressure. They are not formed in the atmosphere. So now we are exposed to heavy metals. It's in our mercury, it's in our food, it's in our agriculture, it's in our medicine, it's in our vaccines, it's in our paint, it's in our glazing, it's in our electroplating, it's in our manufacturing industries and pollution into the air, into the water, into everywhere. Those heavy metals force our body to go into an acidic state to protect itself from the devastating impact of their binding our own receptors, which they do irreversibly, hence their high toxic effect. You need to clean them up first. It's also true of other types of toxins, pesticide residues, insecticides, herbicides, PCBs, DDTs, volatile organic compounds, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. There are so many others. Then you eat flesh that is full with hormones and antibiotics and the toxins that even your organically grazing animal, freely ranging, eating grass only, but is drinking polluted water all its life, because nobody is feeding their ox or their buffalo pure water. I haven't seen the RO system to feed all those animals. They accumulate those toxins in their body throughout their life because they drink water all the time. You can tap yourself on the shoulder and say, oh, I'm eating the good kind. But it is still highly toxic. It's still very high in protein, which will be forming the worst, most toxic, most destructive acids as a result of converting it into energy. Do I tell you to become vegan? No. You don't have to. But remember the quality and the quantity of the food that you eat. In nature, you probably would not have proteins from animal source more than 5% of your calories, probably less than 5. In some cultures, in some environment, it might be just 1%. So eat it very infrequently if you insist on eating it. From scientific perspective, not humanitarian or ecological, just from scientific physiological perspective, you should minimize the intake of flesh and dairy, especially dairy, to a very small amount, 1% to 5% of your caloric intake at most. Then the rest of it will be carbohydrates and fats, and you will have a lot less acid buildup from that and from the toxins as well. But if you have all those other toxins from the pesticides and other residues that end up both in the flesh, in the dairy, and in your environment, all of which enter your body, they too require first a very elaborate detoxification method to clean up your tissues from those toxins so that the pH will gradually change by itself towards where it needs to be. Instead of obsessively trying to alkalize, simply engage in a meaningful detoxification process. Replete the nutrients that are missing. Improve your mineral intake. And suddenly, you don't lose calcium anymore, and perhaps over time, your tissues will be able to get rid of some of that calcification that made you so stiff in the first place, and so arteriosclerotic, and so sarcopenic, meaning losing muscle mass and wasting your own muscles, and so painful as in lactic acid buildup and fibromyalgia, and the risk of kidney stones and cancer. Just make the gradual changes. First, clean up your toxins. I have a 90-day metabolic detoxification program. It's the most potent. There is, not because I devised it, but because it addresses every source of toxins that I know of that we have in significant quantities coming into our body. And if I learn about a new one, I'll be the first to admit that I forgot it. And very, very shamefully, I will add it to the program and inform everybody who does it not to forget to add that one. But in the last year, as I learned new things and helped formulate new products, I managed to add more and more aspects to this detoxification, realizing that as long as you have toxins coming into your body, you will never detoxify your deep tissue accumulation. Because why should the toxins want to go out of your tissues into the blood when the blood is already full with toxins? It will not happen. You cannot lie to yourself and say, I am detoxing on a 1 week or 2 weeks or even a 6-week program if you didn't, at least for 6 weeks, engage in the complete neutralization and elimination of incoming toxins from all the major sources of such toxins in our environment, both externally and internally. I have never seen any program that does that. Probably because you cannot have a popular program which is complex. People want the simple answer, and they want to believe they are really detoxing. But they are not. You can feel better for many reasons besides detoxification. When you do something that makes you feel good, it means nothing to the tissues that have accumulated toxins over many years. They are still in your brain, in your kidneys, in your bone marrow, in your critical organs. They're still in your fat, preventing you from losing it. Those toxins must come out. And only when they're out, your tissue acidity will gradually diminish, because it will not need to be there anymore. You can do it, but don't expect simplicity. I admit right now it's not an easy process. But if it were easy, it would be just as good as not doing it at all. Don't even bother. And if you do that, you are diverting your energy into the direction of health, as opposed to into the direction of measuring your dipstick level of pH of the urine, just to give yourself a tap on the shoulder when you temporarily improve your diet to reduce the outcoming acid, but doing nothing for the acid that are still in the tissues and the toxin that are still there. And when you do that green juice that you drink in large quantity with spirulina or with blue-green algae or wheatgrass or buckwheat grass, all those green juices you do in large quantities to alkalize your tissues, be very careful. You can try to alkalize the tissue too fast, like I said earlier, and cause toxins within it, within the tissues, to bind irreversibly and cause you more damage. You want to first take your toxins out. That is addressing the cause. You want to first improve your nutrient uptake. That's a cause. You want to improve your oxygen. That's a cause. You want to reduce your infectious organisms, your colonies, wherever they are. You want to improve your oral hygiene, where a lot of microbes reside and a lot of toxins come out of. This is another cause. You want to clean your water and air to the best of your ability. We go through all of those functions, so people know step by step how to clean up their act and divert all of the energy into this proactive process of detoxification that is meaningful and brings them towards health by addressing causes instead of chasing your pH level. No need for that. You know that if you eat healthier and avoid all of those problematic causes, your pH will improve anyway. So why measure it? Not necessary. And avoid the foods that are the number one cause of food-related immediate acid buildup, like soft drinks. Soft drinks contain so much phosphoric acid and artificial sugars or high fructose corn syrup, all of which are extremely acid building in your tissues. Not good. Anybody who is intelligent and educated and doing really well in business and sits next to me on first class when I get upgraded because of my frequent flyer, I see those people who are the crème de la crème. At least they feel that way because they sit in first class. They bought the ticket. And what do? The first time the air flight attendant comes, they order Coca-Cola to go with their hamburger. Then you think, gosh, can we have hope in our society when these crème de la crème people are so clueless? And of course, phosphoric acid comes directly from the phosphorus-rich soft drinks. And the caffeine. Coffee contains so many organic acids by itself. They get absorbed as organic acids and increase our acidity. And any product containing caffeine, including chocolate, I don't care if it's cooked or raw, all of those foods containing caffeine increasing our acidity for two reasons. One, the way that we metabolize them. They are rich with macronutrients and not enough micronutrients. But worse, even if they have some micronutrients, they cause our kidneys stress. They open the kidneys up and we lose our potassium, magnesium, and calcium just when we need them most. Hence, you cannot ever try to alkalize or improve your tissue balance on those caffeinated products or stimulants. And by the way, remember stimulants and the sympathetic nervous system. You take stimulants and you go into catabolic state. You rev up your metabolism. So you build up even more acid than you would without them. So you already have three reasons why caffeine-containing products, stimulating products, will produce more acid in your system. Hence, never think that chocolate is healthy. It never had been, never will be. Only in your mind, if you want it so. If you eat once in a while, you have to be willing to accept that it is a compromise. But don't tell yourself it's healthy. That's rationalization. No need to rationalize and justify to yourself the behaviors that truthfully you should know intuitively cannot be possibly good for you. Even if the decaffeinated products are still going to be bad for you and acidifying, highly acidifying. Avoid all the artificial and extracted sweeteners that are rich with fructose or other forms of sugars, including the ones that are somehow becoming healthy and then a week later become unhealthy. Don't trust them if they have a name that is not the name of a natural product. Sooner or later, the truth will come out, even if somebody tries to sell them to you now. Everybody wants something sweet. Eat your fruit if you want sweetness. If you can't handle fructose, contact my assistant and I'll tell you why some people, temporarily at least, cannot handle fruit. It's not because fruit is evil. It's because their system has been flawed by their own behavior or sometimes by their genetics. But they need to know those things so that they can still benefit from fruit and its goodness without suffering the negative impact that maybe 1 out of 50 or 1 out of 20 would have. Yet that 1 out of 20 is going to be very vocal. And everybody will think, because of that one person, that they should all avoid the fruit. That is how society works. We are all herd. We follow whoever speaks louder. And whoever speaks louder is usually the one who complains louder. Those who don't complain are not so loud, usually. These are some of the foods that we eat regularly. But what about water? Water is an important concept because many people talk about ionized and alkalized water. And many people spend a lot of money on water devices, water machines, that are presumably, some correctly and some incorrectly, depending on which brand we're talking about, will try to tell you that you need alkalized water to alkalize your tissue. The most important things to remember with regards to water and pH is A, is the water mineralized? Because minerals that come in water are dissolved in a very small concentration. Therefore, they are very easily absorbed into your tissues. A mineralized water would have about 1,500 milligrams of dissolved minerals per liter of water. A liter is just a bit over a quart, about 10% more than a quart. Which means the water has to be mineralized. And then you get easily absorbed minerals from the water, and the minerals can be used in neutralizing your potent acids that cannot be eliminated through carbonic acid, bicarbonate ion recycling, and proton elimination in the urine. So you need those minerals. You can get them in the water, and then the water is good for you. At the same time, you need to eliminate the toxic elements in your water because water is polluted. So it's true that cleaning up your water is first necessary, so you don't get more toxins to increase the acidity, and then mineralizing the water afterwards. How do you mineralize your water in a way that is effective? By putting in there the very same minerals that are necessary in our carbonic salts, carbonic minerals, to neutralize our acids, the destructive ones. So it will be magnesium carbonate, calcium carbonate, potassium carbonate, even a little bit of sodium, because sodium is also a neutralizer. It provides us with a base that neutralizes the acid. But we generally don't have a severe deficiency in sodium unless we eat nothing that has sodium in it. And we definitely have a deficiency of the potassium, the calcium, and the magnesium. But I'm not against a healthy level of sodium that comes with natural salts that contains the other minerals. Our body can utilize it, but not too much. Then, if the water has these types of minerals, the water will by itself provide us with sufficient minerals to undo some of the acidity, and that will be good. However, if the magnesium and potassium and calcium are adhering to chloride ions, they will not be functioning because the chloride will contribute to acidity, as in HCl, and we will not benefit from the minerals. So you must make sure the water you drink has not been chlorinated, and that if the minerals were added, the minerals are not chlorinated or bound to chloride as well. That will neutralize the benefit. That's the most important aspect of your water for the purpose of tissue pH improvement, by addressing the causes. Now, let's say that you wanted to alkalize really fast to pass some kind of alkalinity test required for getting a job. We only take people who have a urine above 6.8. So then, of course, you can cheat, drink baking soda, dissolve it in the water, like I said earlier. You'll immediately get alkaline urine, and you'll get the job. You can also alternately take some alkaline water that's been ionized, and the protons going in one way and the hydroxide ions going the other way, and you get more hydroxide ion, and your pH of the water becomes 8 or 8.5 or even 9. That is very similar in some ways to putting the baking soda in the water, because you also have in baking soda the hydroxide ion as a result of its dissociation, what it does to the water. So you will get some alkaline water in, and it will change the pH of the kidneys. Some of that water will be absorbed by the tissues and might make your tissues feel temporarily more energetic. You will feel like you have a little more oxygen in the tissues, and you'll feel better, which will help you if you're trying to be a very hardcore athlete, for example, because you need more oxygen to reduce the buildup of lactic acid. You will feel better in the short run. In the long run, nobody really knows, because it's just a temporary wash. The most important thing is the food, because that's where you get a lot of molecules that convert into acid in your system. Whereas in the water, even if the water is pH 9, alkaline, the actual number of active alkalizers is very small. It's only water. And the dissociation of water to protons and hydroxide ions is basically why water is neutral at pH 7, because you have exactly 0.0000001 protons, concentration of protons per molecular weight or mole of water. That's a tiny number of protons. And it will also be a tiny number of hydroxide ions. Remember, H and OH, together it's H2O. H plus, OH minus. I didn't mention that earlier because I thought it would be too much biochemistry. But you know what I mean when the water dissociates. Only a tiny amount of the water will dissociate under regular atmospheric pressure, 1 atmospheric pressure, and the standard temperature of 22 degrees Celsius, which is room temperature. You have such a tiny amount of hydroxide ions that even if you go into a higher number, it would still be a tiny amount. Even if you go to pH 9, the dissociation of water is still going to be a tiny, tiny amount within the total amount of water molecules that you're drinking. By comparison to food, it's not that much. But it's true that if you drink alkalized water every day, you are slightly reducing the acidity in the tissues, and it feels better. But it's even more important to add to it the magnesium carbonate or the potassium and calcium, like we said earlier, and to avoid the chloride, because molecule for molecule, they will be stronger in neutralizing the acids that come out of your system. The hydroxide ion is alkaline water because it binds protons, but it does not neutralize your lactic acid. It does not neutralize your sulfuric and phosphoric acid in sufficient quantity to make a real long-term impact for your health. It is just another adjunctive out of many. Unfortunately, some people think that they can drink soft drink and then drink alkaline water to offset it. And you will need 32 large glasses of pH 9 water to offset only 1 glass of a soft drink. Just to give you an idea of the quantities here. Nobody is going to offset by drinking 32 glasses, would they, in one day? Just to give you an idea how you cannot do your thing, party away, and expect that your alkaline water will undo that. It cannot quantity-wise. But if you eat really healthy and detoxify and remineralize and improve your antioxidant state and balance and stabilize your sugar level through your diet, through your stress management, through your electromagnetic radiation and field exposure, which increase your blood sugar as well, emotions, when you do all those things together, or at least some of them, but especially the food, because that's the number one, numerically speaking, then also adding water that is slightly alkaline will not be necessarily a bad thing, but also perhaps have some benefit. But it's not nearly as important as the food and as the avoidance of the acid-forming food that we talked about, and as the severe intake of proteins, especially from animal sources, that we all engage in. But let's not kid ourselves. Even protein that comes from plants, if it comes in large amounts, as in grains or in nuts and seeds especially, they will also cause slight acidity. because there's more protein, and that's why we're not eating them in severe quantities. We sprinkle them. We sprinkle small amount of them on our vegetable salad or in our smoothie or in our fruit salad, but we don't eat them just like that. They're not a trail mix. They're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be eaten in small amounts, diluted by vegetables and fruits that are alkalizing. Also, people might ask, what happens when I drink this water with lemon that is slightly acidic? How come we're told